The saga kicks off with a chap called Jake, who's strapped to the chair like a bad birthday gift, and his wrists are cuffed tighter than his regrets. Around his neck, the iron chain is choking him like an overenthusiastic hug, and it looks like he's locked in some abandoned freak show warehouse. Clearly etched on his mug are bruises of torture and sheer panic, and he gets chatted up right then by a dude sporting a bizarre and nightmare-inducing mask. He informs him that he clinched the contest, but just the final round is left, and he has to pick one box from the 3 boxes parked in front of him. So Jake picks one of the boxes, and he's shaking like a leaf in a hurricane, and out pops a hunting rifle from the box. Jake crumbles and pleads with the masked creep to spare him and release him, but the masked nutjob thanks him for acing every game phase. Right then, the rifle fires, and a slug blasts out of it straight into Jake's skull, and he croaks on the spot. Afterward, we spot 4 buddies road tripping together, and they are Matthew, Anita, James, and Melissa. They're vacationing in the cabin of James's uncle, who offed himself not long ago, and they're toasting Anita's birthday, their pal. At night, while they're lounging together, they goof around. Suddenly, they catch a sound pounding viciously on the door, and they freak out, thinking it's a bear. James opts to milk the moment and crack jokes and spook his pals, so Anita fumes at him and insists they must call the cops. But James ridicules her and claims the issue ain't worth squat, and resolves to step out of the cabin to check what's hammering the door. Right then, Melissa jump scares him just like he did to them. But James spots something in the yard, and it's a video cam. And inside it, a tape. Anita rages that he snatched the cam and craves to view the videotape. James begins fuming at her and declares she's a dull soul and that it ain't their blame. Her mom's gonna kick the bucket soon. So they mope beside her. Anita explodes at his rant and smashes the videotape. And right then, James vows to boot her from the cabin. But Anita ditches him and climbs to the room she's crashing in. A bit later, Matthew ascends to Anita to chat with her and soothe her. But she retorts to him and states she ain't bummed, since her mom will truly croak soon. And yet she ditched her and joined to hang with them to unwind a tad from herself. Matthew assures her that this ain't egoism, and that she's the finest human he's encountered in his existence. Afterward, while Matthew is tidying the cabin, he spots that the cam is rolling and discovers the cabin door ajar. He circles back to peek at his buddies and realizes that Anita and Melissa ain't rousing, as if they're doped. He commences hunting James, but abruptly a figure arrives and jabs him with a sedative. Matthew strives right then to bolt from the cabin, but he tumbles to the floor and blacks out. We witness afterward Matthew and the remainder of his buddies in a bizarre spot, and we learn that it's the identical spot where Jake was. Right then, Anita awakens, and on her face are marks of dread and terror, since she knows not where she is, or how she and her buddies arrived here. She yells at them all to snap awake, and abruptly, at the identical instant, the light flips on, and everybody realizes they're chained with iron links from their throats. There's a figure donning a bizarre mask looming before them, and with him a cam. He records them, exits, and bolts the door on them. He's the very creep who slew Jake. Right then, James implodes and craves to liberate himself from the iron chains by hook or crook. But the masked fiend returns once more and chats before the cam, greeting Matthew and his buddies to the showdown. Anita puzzles that this creep knows them and knows their monikers. He informs them that the opening round of the showdown is super simple and ditches them again briefly to gear up. Right then, James suspects that this is a gag show and suspects his buddies that they're mocking him and pulling a prank on him. But Anita urges him to chill a smidge, since nobody's gagging him or anything. And certainly, if this is a gag show, they wouldn't abduct them this way and sedate them. Afterward, the masked fiend returns and informs Matthew and his buddies that they'll play first the rock, paper, scissors game. Per what each of them picked will be his penalty, meaning Melissa, since she picked paper. The masked fiend resolved to slash her mouth with a razor card. Matthew picks rock, and right then, the masked nut hits him with a rock on his noggin. James snips his digits with scissors, since he picked scissors, and gazes at Anita and assures her that he'll attempt to plug her with a slug from his pistol. Anita pleads and implodes, but the pistol is a plaything. The masked nut cackles at her while she's terrified and informs them all that the opening round is done this way. Afterward, James is livid and brawls with his buddies since he's still dubious of them, thinking they've a finger in what's transpiring. Right then, the masked fiend arrives and informs them that they'll play now in the second round of the showdown, and the game this time is dubbed the Agony Wheel. Melissa sobs and begs him to let her scram, so the masked fiend informs her that he too craves to scram like her. Thus, he'll force each of them to admit the hugest blunder he committed in his life, and he'll select from them afterward who will twirl the Agony Wheel. He compels James to admit, so James informs him that he smashed a lass with the car named Ashley, ditched her to perish, and bolted. The masked nut heads to Anita and queries her the identical question. So she informs him that she crafted a page on the web for grown-ups and flaunts pics in it for cash so she can cover her mom's cure costs and aid her. The turn arrives to Matthew, who admits and states that he swindles folks via the web and cracks their accounts to extort them and grab cash from them. In the finale, the turn arrives to Melissa, who admits that she couldn't bankroll her pooch sanctuary, that she was operating to shield them from the streets, and discovered a bloke who owns a spot where he forces dogs to brawl each other till demise. She resolved to vend him the dogs she owns. Right then, the masked fiend adores Melissa's admission and resolves that she's the one who'll twirl the Agony Wheel. When Melissa twirls the wheel, she lands the penalty she'll suffer. But the masked nut grants her a second shot and urges her to grip the cam and plant her eyes on the lens and utter the names of the nations she spots in the pics. Right then, Melissa nails the first and second pic correctly, but in the third pic she botches and knows it not. When she attempts to view the fourth pic, abruptly a spike bursts from the lens and pierces her eyes. Melissa shrieks from the agony, and the masked fiend informs her that this transpired since she didn't nail it. Afterward, the masked nut compels Anita to grip the power drill that he owns and informs her that she's mandated now to shove the drill in Matthew's ear. Anita is stunned by his demand and implodes right then, but she's compelled to execute what he demanded her since he menaced her that he'll slaughter her and Melissa and James. She truly shoves the drill in Matthew's ear, and right then, Matthew howls from the horrific agony he senses, and he can't fathom that Anita is pulling this on him. Abruptly, at the identical instant, the drill snaps, and this drives the masked fiend berserk and furious. He informs Anita that she's the one who wrecked the drill, and ditches them and bolts in the zenith of his rage. Afterward, Matthew and his buddies are perched, chatting together, and Melissa informs them that she's starving madly. The remainder inform her that they too are starving like her, and abruptly, at the identical time, the masked fiend barges in on them and urges them to rise all. He chats to the statues he placed in the spot as if they're the crowd tracking the showdown, and urges them to clap and greet Matthew and the remainder. He commences elucidating the fresh game to them and informs them that he'll query them a question, and the one who nails it correctly will be the champ. He queries them, what is the most agonizing part in the body if struck? Matthew retorts and states the brain, and the turn arrives to Melissa, and she states that the most agonizing part in harm is the knee, while Anita picks the gut. James, right then, picks the muscles and strives at the identical time to whack the masked fiend in any manner, but he's chained with the iron link from his throat and can't budge. The masked nut informs them the outcome and informs them that most of the retorts of the folks he queried were the brain. Thus, Matthew is the one who triumphed this round, and the one who flopped is Melissa, since she and merely 3 stated that the knee is the most agonizing part in the body. Abruptly, the iron chains yank Matthew and the remainder to the wall, and they spot something colossal cruising over them. Abruptly, it halts at Melissa, and right then, Melissa implodes from dread and horror. It commences to drop and near her skull quietly and abruptly. Before Melissa's skull is utterly pulverized, the masked fiend resolves to halt and let one of Melissa's buddies step in her stead and forfeit his life for her, granting her a shot to survive. Everybody tenses and terrifies, and nobody of them utters. They are stunned. At the identical time, the masked fiend reignites the gadget that shifts the sharp object again, and right then, Melissa's skull is cleaved in two amid the horror and shrieks of her buddies. The masked nut watches while hauling Melissa's corpse on the floor. Afterward, we spot the masked fiend perched before the mirror, yanking his mask right then to slash his face with the blade. Oddly, he slaps his mask back on. In the interim, James strives to liberate himself. So Anita urges him to chill since he can't pull anything. It appears that all of them will croak here just now. James informs her that he must strive and endeavor since he craves not to croak in this spot or in this manner. Abruptly, the masked nut barges in on them with a table on it, a telly, and abruptly they spot running on the telly a scene of a chick perched being tormented on the chair. The one tormenting her is the masked fiend himself. Right then, the masked nut nears Anita and yanks the mask from his face. Anita spots that the masked nut's face is packed with scars, so she puzzles right then, especially that his look ain't alien to her, and it's evident on her the fierce dread. The masked fiend slaps the mask back on and informs them, the trio, that the spectacle time has kicked off. They spot right then the chick on the telly and the masked nut gripping a saw and slicing her entire body with it, and afterward, he exits and ditches them. And right then, James is baffled by something. He senses that Anita knows who the masked fiend is, and knows also the chick who popped on the telly while being tormented. So he informs Matthew that his words are spot on, since Anita was laboring on Barry Miller's show, and that was a famed show for games and contests hosted by the famed presenter Barry, the masked nut who was before them now. And we rewind in time for a spell, and we spot Anita perched with two coworkers named Jake and Rebecca. We note that Jake is the identical one we spotted at the kickoff of the events being tormented and slain by the masked nut, while Rebecca is the identical chick who was being tormented and slain on the telly before Anita and her buddies. And we learn right then that Anita, Jake, and Rebecca are laboring together on Barry Miller's contest show crew. Right then, Jake and Rebecca strive to persuade Anita that Barry is a groper and that they overheard intel from the cops stating that anyone who fetches proof and rats him will snag a massive sum. So Anita puzzles, since she spots not that Barry could be a groping soul. At the identical time, Barry arrives and chats to the trio, thanking them that they are one of the causes for the show's triumph, and stuns Anita with her birthday. He fetched a cake for her and croons for her. He and the entire crew. Anita is uber thrilled right then with this stun, but abruptly, Rebecca bellows at Barry and scraps with him since he planted his paw on Anita's shoulder, urging him to cease planting his paws on the lasses or fingering them. Barry puzzles, since he meant zilch, and apologizes right then to Anita and bolts. It manifests right then on Anita that she was irked by what transpired, and she queries Rebecca why she pulled this on Barry. She retorts to her and informs her that he merits this to transpire to him, and that they, as lasses, merit not anyone to treat them with his antics. Afterward, we spot Anita ratting Barry, saying that he groped her after Rebecca and Jake persuaded her and lured her with the cash prize, since she needs the dough for her mom's cure costs. We snap back now to the current time. As soon as Barry, the masked nut, barges in on Anita and her buddies, James chats to him, and they learn that he is Barry the presenter, and learn also what transpired to him. James states that he comprehends Barry surely craves to avenge Anita, and thus he'll aid him avenge her, since she merits it. She's the cause for what hit him, and rendered him a soul who craves to slay, avenge, and torment. James vows right then that if Barry liberates him and hauls him out of here, he'll stand by him and avenge for him on any soul who harmed him. So Barry queries him right then if he can restore to him his life that was demolished, and restore to him his spouse and kiddos who distanced from him, and his show and his crowd and admirers that he forfeited. James tenses, but strives to persuade him in any manner that he can restore anything Barry forfeited again. Barry retorts to him mockingly, and informs them that he can't haul him out of here unless he cleaves his skull in two. James is stunned and rages uber hard, craving to liberate himself, but he knows not how. At the identical instant, Barry snatches the head of the attorney who aids Anita and nears Anita so she can eyeball it. She implodes as soon as she eyeballs the attorney's head, but Barry informs her that he'll slay Matthew and James in the identical manner if she chomps not now pronto the attorney's tongue. So Anita is compelled to heed the words, sobbing and utterly imploded, knowing not how to maneuver. But abruptly, at the identical time, James succeeds to smack Barry and floor him. Yet Barry has wired power to the iron chains and can rule them remotely. He zaps right then Anita, James, and Matthew. After a spell, we spot Barry plopping James and Matthew on cots and binding them to them. James notes right then that his belly has a gash. And he, Matthew. Barry chats to them and informs them that the upcoming game is his fave game, and ditches Anita on the floor, handing her the blade, and exits. Barry chats afterward via the speakers in the spot with Anita and informs her that there is a key to bolt and flee, and she'll locate it either inside Matthew or inside James. And she's the one who must yank it herself. Anita is stunned and informs him that she can't pull this. But Barry retorts and informs her that this is the sole path before her to bolt from here, she and her buddies, and those who will croak of starvation within a week. After that, Anita grips the blade and ponders what she'll pull. James beseeches her not to slay him and lures her right then with cash, saying he can dish her any cash she craves so she can cure her mom and aid her survive. Matthew urges him to chill and not chat in this manner, but James rages and reminds them that he and Anita knew each other via him, the cause for their camaraderie. Matthew puzzles at his words, realizing that James is primed to forfeit any one of them for himself solely. James informs him that he knows they loved him not and were always scorning him behind his spine. But despite that, he adored them since he had no other buddies besides them. Right then, Matthew gazes at Anita and queries her if she's truly pondering slaying them to snag the key. Anita tenses, stays mute, and nears Matthew. James cheers her and informs her that the key is surely in Matthew's corpse and that she's pulling the right move. Matthew is imploded and sobbing, unable to fathom what's transpiring. Abruptly, Anita retreats and nears James. James is stunned right then and terrified, beseeching Anita not to harm him. Matthew urges her to chill and ponder, not to pull anything to James. But Anita rages and informs them both that she must maneuver and pick one of them, locate the key, and bolt from here. At the identical instant, Anita wields the blade, prees the gash in James's belly, and strives to rein her nerves to shove her paws inside his belly and hunt the key. Indeed, she locates the key right then. She's uber thrilled, snags it, and sprints to the door to unlock it. But she's stunned that the key unlocks not the door. She implodes right then and keeps howling. Right then, Barry chats via the speakers with Anita and informs her that it's evident the key emerged erroneous. Thus, they'll kick off a fresh phase of the game, and he informs them that the one who can tough to the finale will be the champ. At the identical time, Anita uncovers that James is already croaked. Barry liberates them from the iron chains, but he is irked with Anita since she slew James. She apologizes to him, utterly imploded, informing him that she knows not how to ponder or what she's supposed to pull. She queries Matthew right then if he'll slay her, and abruptly she spots Matthew gripping the blade. He informs her that it's impossible for both of them to bolt from here, and one of them solely must survive, since these are the game rules that Barry stated. The champ will be one soul solely. Anita is stunned and terrified, but Matthew right then resolves to admit to Anita that he adores her and urges her to vow him that she'll triumph. Right then, Matthew slays himself with the blade. Anita implodes. Afterward, Anita awakens after blacking out. She locates herself sprawled on the floor, rises, strolls in the spot, and locates Barry's chamber that has surveillance cam screens. She spots the card that he slashed Melissa's mouth with, snags it, and stashes it with her. She also spots his desk that has videotapes and pics for every soul Barry abducted and tormented till he croaked. Afterward, Anita overhears Barry's voice summoning her to come perch on the chair, so they resume the finale round in the game, the round of picking the champ for his prize. Anita retorts to him and informs him that she'll croak like the remainder, since there is no champ and everybody croaks. She informs him that she spotted her pick beside the pics and tapes of those who croaked and queries Barry if he truly adores what he's pulling. He retorts and informs her that the ancient Barry is croaked already. But Anita informs him that she's the sole one who can haul Barry back again, since she'll inform everyone that she fibbed and wronged him. Barry rages and urges her to yank a strand from the strands before her and resume the finale round in the game. But Anita resumes her words and apologizes to Barry for what she pulled to him, admitting that she demolished his life. Barry informs her that her apology will alter zilch. She pulled what she pulled to him, was persuaded, and regretted not a tick, all this to salvage her mom's life. But in exchange, she snatched his life and demolished him. Anita sobs right then and informs him that she surely regretted and loathed herself due to what she pulled. Barry informs her that he was a decent soul, and that if she had queried him for the cash to aid her mom, he would have stood by her and aided her, since he craved nothing but to be a decent soul, a tender dad, and an ideal spouse. He urges Anita to yank a strand as he queried her, and vows her that if she heeds him, he'll not near her mom. So Anita is compelled to heed him, to shield her mom, and locates on the table before her 3 prize boxes. She yanks the strand of one box, and when the box prees, inside it is a massive cake. Barry claps for Anita and croons her the birthday tune. At the identical instant, Anita hauls out the card she stashed and assaults Barry, slashing him with it, and strives right then to sprint and flee from the spot. Indeed, Anita succeeds to bolt from the spot she was caged in and keeps sprinting, unable to fathom that she finally bolted. Abruptly, Barry zaps her via the iron coiled around her throat, so Anita tumbles to the floor, her motion paralyzed. Barry nears her and informs her that the scars on his face he crafts to himself after he slays someone. He informs her also that the world craves a soul like him, since he's the sole one who knows how to play the game. Barry commences hauling Anita on the floor and restores her again to the spot they were in. Afterward, we spot Anita perched on the chair, Barry binding her to it, gripping her skull with all his might and shoving it in the cake. He informs her that she is now liberated. Anita is thrilled, but her thrill lasts not, since abruptly she senses fierce scorching in her face and forfeits her sight right then. She spots Zilch and notes that her face skin is peeling. She implodes and howls while querying Barry what he pulled to her. Anita's limb tumbles to the floor, and she can't budge. She croaks at the identical instant. Barry perches beside her, croons, and gazes at the cam, chill and ecstatic that he nailed justice for himself and snatched his right from his viewpoint. And the flick wraps. We rendezvous in a fresh recap. Cheers for viewing.